The first 5 episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 have aired, and with it, the entirety of Hidden Inventory has been adapted. I've done anime and manga comparisons before on the channel, and today I will be doing the same thing with Jujutsu Kaisen. What Gege was able to do in the manga, and what Mappa was able to do with the anime will both be looked at in this video in order to decide which one is better for you. To start the comparisons between the Jujutsu Kaisen anime and manga, I'd like to take a look at the story told within this arc and how each medium tackles covering it. Typically, there wouldn't be much to say in this regard, but Mappa did an amazing job of adding relevant story and character content to this arc that overall added to the enjoyability of it. The manga story is obviously the standard and baseline, and as that standard, it's obvious that Gege did an amazing job. Gojo, Geto, Toji, and Riko are the core characters that we hone on in this arc, and aside from Riko, or at least in the manga, I would say that Gege was firing at all cylinders. I exclude Riko from the conversation here, not because Gege did a bad job with her character, but simply because she doesn't hold up to the quality and charisma that the other 3 main characters do, and I honestly find her a bit more compelling in the anime. The basic story beats of the anime and manga are completely the same, but with the guidance of Gege and the passion that the studio has for the series, there are several minor additions that culminate into a slightly different experience with Hidden Inventory. Toji, for example, gets quite a bit of focus in episode 2 in a way that he just didn't get in the manga. His discussion with Kong, his betting on races, and even his general demeanor while eating and regarding the assassination of Riko all get a bit more room to breathe and really let you become familiar with his presence. This buildup still exists in the manga. However, until he actually shows up to kill Gojo and Riko, Toji isn't nearly as prominent of a character. This is fine, and it doesn't detract from the quality of his arc and his fights, but it certainly does help to have a personality as charismatic as his be put on full display for the audience, even if only a bit earlier in the story. Toji is a very beloved community in the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase despite his evil deeds, so making the decision to show what he's like in regular, everyday situations only furthers the connection that manga fans and anime fans alike can form with him. Small idiosyncrasies that Toji has that we never got to see in the manga can be showed off in additional moments like this, and in an arc that is so short and compact with its storytelling, a little bit really does go a long way for the characters. Likewise, Riko benefits from the additional material added in the anime as well. Her added scenes don't make themselves as blatant as Toji's do at times, but they are still there. Mainly, getting to see her have fun with Gojo and Geto before the day of the merger, and her revelation on how she feels about becoming one with Tengen come to mind when talking about her character improvement in the anime. Once again, it's not like these scenes just don't exist in the manga, but they are simply glossed over and not presented with as much flair as the anime. Now, you would think that adding several minutes of content to both of these characters throughout the arc would somewhat bog down the pacing, at least when compared to the manga, but that couldn't be more incorrect. Even with Mappa really flexing and deciding to dedicate half an episode to Urahime and Meimei's mission, something that just wasn't at all necessary to the core story, the anime still felt like it was flying right by, never feeling too slow or too fast. One criticism that Gege often gets with his writing is that he doesn't linger on certain scenes, moments, or characters enough. His very brisk and efficient style of storytelling just doesn't lend itself to that manner of writing. Now, this isn't that much of a problem in Hidden Inventory, but the anime goes above and beyond to make sure that it doesn't fall into the same trap. We move along through every major plot beat at a brisk and fun pace, just like in the manga, but the series takes its time to slow down in certain moments and let us linger just a little bit more. Facial expressions, conversations, and fights all get extended when necessary to fully immerse us in the story being told in this arc. It's nothing excessive, but it's just enough to slightly improve my opinion on the arc, even though I've been a fan of Hidden Inventory since it came out in the manga. Riko in particular is a better character because of decisions like this, and because of her relevance to this arc, that makes the entire story better as a result. Now, don't mistake my Mappa praise for Gege hate. Hidden Inventory's adaptation only hits as hard as it does because the manga was an extremely good blueprint to build off of. The characters, story beats, and narrative developments all come from the manga and Gege's mind at the end of the day, but because of the extra hindsight, passion, and assistance from the author himself, the anime was able to seriously improve upon the Hidden Inventory formula. As you may have noticed, I only talked about half of the important characters within this arc, being Toji and Riko, completely ignoring Gojo and Geto. And don't you worry, I did not forget about them. Individually, they were also improved in the anime with the additional content and storytelling, but as a duo, they really shined through. I'll talk about exactly how and why this was the case in a bit, but first, I'd like to talk about the presentation of the anime and the manga. Before I start comparing the two though, I'd like to make a statement about the manga, a hot take, if you will, and defend it before talking about the anime, just to establish some good faith. I know this opinion is likely to be supported by anyone who is enough of a fan to watch this video, but I gotta say that Gege's art in Hidden Inventory is really good. It's not just okay or passable or enough to not make the manga worse. I am standing on the fact that Hidden Inventory and Shibuya era Gege especially genuinely contains great art. The art is still messy, it's still unrefined, it's still a little bit wonky, but in spite of that, it's really good and does exactly what it sets out to do. The expressions, both intense and relaxing, are really well drawn. Hidden Inventory seems to have been a point in Gege's artistic development where he really hit his stride with making characters look their best. And for it to be the arc where Toji was introduced, I gotta say, I am very thankful for that. I'm also thankful for the fact that this is the time he also started ramping up his composition creativity and skill with fight choreography. Up to this point, he'd always been good at drawing an entertaining battle, but that trait really got a power boost in this arc. Characters feel fast and dangerous, hits feel super impactful and deadly, and movements read really clearly, despite that being a little bit weird because of how messy Gege's art is in this arc. There was never a point in Hidden Inventory where I felt genuinely lost or confused, and like I just mentioned, that is a testament to Gege's ability to parse through the messiness and really give us clarity. Gojo's use of spatial manipulation also looked particularly interesting at several points in the story, and as you can see with these double-page spreads, Gege knew how to create an interesting scene during this arc. Some may disagree, but this era of Gege was on his A game. That being said, Mappa took Gege's A game and decided to make it even better. The presentation in the anime is spectacular. It's actually crazy that for some this is a super hot take or just wrong opinion, but Season 2's style of animation is a significant upgrade from Season 1's, and that's clearly the case. Some may dismiss it for its softer style, lesser shading, and lacks details, but all of those are bonuses in my book. The softer color palette and aesthetic makes every landscape and establishing shot look beautiful. The lower amount of shading emulates this era of Gege's original drawings and colorings more, and the decision to hold off on adding all of the crazy details that they put in Season 1 allows for movement to be much more fluid on average than what we got initially. Sure, I bet you can find a Season 1 screenshot that looks more detailed and probably a little bit better than a Season 2 screenshot if you compare them side by side, but guess what? In an anime, I'm more interested about how the things are animated than how they look as a screenshot. And Season 2 seems to be willing to break away from a super strict one-to-one, hyper-detailed recreation of the manga in lieu of using the medium of animation to its maximum capacity. Mappa really walks the line of super fluid, exaggerated animation while also not pushing that fluidity to the point of being incoherent. You can always tell what is going on and who you are looking at, but they make sure to bend the rules to the very limit in order to squeeze as much movement and momentum from the frames as possible. I know many dislike this aesthetic choice, but I love it, and the enjoyment of it seems to be the consensus amongst most fans. The relatively simple shading style and character models being the standard for this entire arc let me know from the jump what type of fighting animation we'd be getting in this season. Because if you are familiar with even the basics of animation, I'm sure you know that when it comes to elite, top-level animation in anime, less is more. I mean, look at any really revered piece of Sakuga, and you'll probably notice that the details and limits of what makes sense are a bit warped. Sasuke versus Orochimaru, Kakashi versus Obito, ton of cuts from Wano, any Mob Psycho fight, and Saitama versus Boros all exemplify what I'm talking about. Compared to your average cut of animation, these all either lower the detail put into each individual drawing, start going off model to exaggerate certain moments, or both. I mean, look at the level of detail and shading in Kakashi versus Obito. Compared to what Naruto usually looks like, this is nothing. However, we acknowledge it to be one of the best fights in the entire series, if not in anime, period, because of how great the animation looks. Look at Sasuke versus Orochimaru, another great Naruto fight. The details are lowered, and guess what? If you screenshot it at certain moments, Sasuke's neck is broken. Bending the limits and rules of these characters and lowering the level of detail has always been a necessity to creating great animation. There are certainly exceptions to the rule, but typically speaking, the more detail that exists in an individual frame, the more stiff that particular animation is going to be. It's simply too tall of a task to combine both peak drawing detail and peak fluidity for major portions of an episode, especially with the schedule that they have. Random animation lesson aside, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 looks amazing, and from a strictly visual and animation perspective, I don't think it could have looked much better. The extension of Toji's first fight with Gojo and its fight with Geto were probably my favorite parts of the arc when talking about animation straight up. The explosive usage of blue, Toji's ridiculous speed, and the improved utilization of curse spirit manipulation made two fights that were already good looking in the manga become something else entirely. If I had to complain about anything animation-wise, I would simply say that I'm kinda sad this panel of Gojo using blue wasn't done in a more one-to-one fashion, because damn does this look really cool, and I wish that when Toji was actually stabbing Gojo, we got a better sense of the speed from the attack flurry rather than going in slow motion. Truly though, those nitpicks and gripes are so small that they honestly don't affect my overall experience with the season. Would it have been nice to see? Sure. Was it absolutely necessary for me to enjoy the adaptation? Hell no. And speaking of adaptation critiques, I know many people didn't enjoy how Gojo's Honored One panel was adapted, but I'm going to be completely honest with everyone watching this video and say that it didn't bother me in the slightest. They adjusted the pose and perspective to suit the anime more, and I liked it all the way through. I get it. Trust me, I get it. The manga version of the moment is really impactful and iconic amongst the JJK community. I completely understand why a lot of people would want to see that moment animated extremely similarly to the manga's depiction. But with everything else surrounding that scene, I don't even know if the manga's version is better. Maybe it looks better when a snapshot is taken of both moments. I'll give you guys that, but you aren't supposed to consume anime like that. You have to take the visuals into account, of course, but you also have to account for the lighting, the voice acting, and the sound design to really come to a holistic conclusion on a scene's quality. Preferring the manga's depiction of this moment over the anime is completely fine. Gege did an absolutely amazing job, and Mappa did an absolutely amazing job. But let's not act like the reason the anime is worse in this instance is because they didn't recreate the shot from the manga exactly. Anime get criticized for doing that oftentimes because, to be completely honest with you, an anime that is only interested in directly recreating shots from the manga is a boring anime. We want minor changes. We want reinventions of things we've already seen to fit the medium better. Aside from this one particular moment, JJK fans seem to be pretty satisfied with what we got from the first 5 episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. And with a finale like Episode 5, I can't blame them. This episode didn't have the action-heavy hype that propelled the other episodes into the fan favorites, but it definitely delivered on creating a mood and really immersing you in it. Geto's expression throughout the entire episode was great. Gojo's shock and disbelief at Geto's actions really caught me off guard with how good it was, even as a manga reader who knew what was coming. And that little shake, that little quiver of Gojo's hand as he tries to bring himself to kill Geto was just spectacular. Sickening, right? I'm gonna throw up and cry, but it was really, really, really well done. Animation-wise, hidden inventory was as close to perfect as possible. If animation was all there was to presentation though, I'd probably have it pull even with the manga. Hidden inventory in both mediums looks about as good as it could have as far as I'm concerned. It's optimized perfectly in both instances for 2 separate mediums. However, where the anime starts to pull ahead is all the other aspects of presentation that matter. Things like sound design, OSTs, and voice acting all add that extra dimension of quality and immersion that the manga just really can't compete with. Gojo and Geto, Toji and Riko all sounded really good in the anime. The voice actors really put their heart and soul into every line, and they did an amazing job of bringing some iconic moments to life with their voice. Having Toji be voiced by Dio's VA at first was a little strange because I heard Dio every time he spoke for like the first episode of Toji's introduction, but after an episode or 2, I got over it and was really able to appreciate Takehito Koyasu's delivery. Gojo sounded good as well, like really, really, really good. In some moments, his voice acting alone made lines that I wouldn't have blinked twice at in the manga jump out at me with some ridiculous intensity. It's hard to pick him as the standout of the arc when Toji and Geto's voice actors did such an amazing job as well, but damn, did everyone really cook something special up in the booth for hidden inventory. It makes me really excited for what we're going to see in the next arc of the season. Moving past that and quickly talking about the sound design though, I gotta give props to the team for really tying everything together with their skills. Unfortunately, I'm not as familiar with sound design as I am with animation, so I can't get into the nitty-gritty details as to why it worked so well, but what I can do is tell you that my ears appreciated the hard work put in. Having the rain and shower audio be the claps of the cult members was such a disgustingly beautiful decision on Mappa's part. The real haunting aspect of that moment for Geto, the thing that really stuck with him for an entire year, felt like it stuck with me too. I understand why this haunted Geto so much, and for that I have to just appreciate the anime quite a bit. The ethereal music playing during Gojo's awakening as well stood out to me as profound, and along with several other moments of extremely impressive use of sound to further immersion, I can safely say that even this was an improvement from season 1. Once again, the manga's presentation is excellent, and if it was just an art to animation comparison, maybe we'd have a real back and forth. But adding that X factor to the conversation makes it clear that the anime is better in this department as well. The final thing to talk about before I conclude this comparison is the emotional aspect of each respective medium. I left this for last, simply because this is essentially the culmination of the anime and manga's presentation, story, characters, and pacing. You don't have emotional connection or resonance without all of these things and stakes. We care about certain moments that happen in any given story because it has done its job to get us invested and immersed. And if you have even marginally decent pattern recognition skills, I'm sure you know which one has my vote in this comparison. Hidden Inventory in the manga has some real hard-hitting moments. Riko's death, Toji's death, Gojo's awakening, Geto's defection, etc., etc., etc. It is the foundation from which the anime was built upon. When you acknowledge the fact that the anime story and pacing was better, the fact that the presentation was better, and the fact that Mappa went out of their way to highlight the tragedy of Gojo and Geto's relationship, it'd be hard to not enjoy the anime more. It simply stood on the shoulders of a great arc and decided to improve upon it at every turn. Having the ending start playing while Riko is deciding that she just wants to be a normal girl, only to have that ending be cut off with Toji's bullet, is the definition of a shank and a twist. I read the manga. I knew it was going to happen. And the anime even suckered me into believing that she would somehow survive. I really thought Geto was about to get her out of there. I mean, it truly knew how to play with your emotions, and it hit you where it hurt. Another example of this, making Toji's death a painful and sympathetic one was an impressive feat in the manga, considering his morality and all the things he had done to fan favorite characters, but it was even harder to witness in the anime. Grabbing his side only to realize that there is nothing there but blood hit strangely hard, and it was kind of gruesome to see that for a character as cool as Toji. And obviously, just about every moment in episode 5 involving Geto's ascent to the curse that we see him as in volume 0 cut really, really deep. Mappa went above and beyond in just about every way possible in this arc, and it did not stop with the emotional moments. In the past, when comparing a particular story's anime and manga counterparts, I have always had to say that the manga was better. Granted, I've reviewed like 2 series in this capacity, but I also feel like I had to do that simply because it didn't feel like the anime could match the tone, vibe, or energy that the mangaka was able to put in their pages. But with Jujutsu Kaisen, with Hidden Inventory, this just isn't the case. I love the manga, and when I inevitably revisit Hidden Inventory, I will probably reread instead of rewatch just because manga is my preferred medium. But in spite of that, I am happy to say that the anime really elevated the source material, even when ignoring the small added joys that the anime gives you, like a banger opening and ending. I gotta say that the anime has been an extremely great experience, one that I can confidently say even surpasses the manga. The animation, pacing, added content, OSTs, voice acting, sound design, and overall aesthetic that the anime had was beyond satisfying, and I'm very happy to say that we got an amazing adaptation for a really, really solid arc. Now y'all know my thoughts on which one is better, but I'm curious which one you prefer, so let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more anime and manga comparisons or JJK content like this, subscribe, hit the bell, and check out these videos I made talking about Toji, Gojo, and Geto. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.